All right, let's go to my man, the Percocet to my drug addiction. Where is he? Let's see a picture of old Danny Segura. Hey, buddy, how are you?
What's up, man? I'm feeling good.
All right, you want to tell folks what you've been up to or no?
Yeah, I got surgery last week for a hernia,
Yep.
last Wednesday. So, I've been a little bit of pain, but, I've been pulling through, so I'm all right.
All right, well, I appreciate you hanging in there.
Yeah.
Glad to see that the Percocets are working their magic.
Yeah. Feeling good.
All right, very good. We can figure out the hissing in my headphones later. Let's do this. Let's get right to these calls. We're going to have to come back to them later as well, but we'll start on them now. So kick it off here, please.
All right, let's do it. Well, big topic with Conor McGregor retiring. A lot of people are speculating why that came about. So, there's a few theories out there, but, this caller suggests one that maybe a lot of people might agree with. So let's listen to it.
Hey Thomas, a choo-choo train, and Danny, Yasmin here. 2 questions really quickly. UFC moved to the ESPN completely, ESPN Plus and ESPN TV channel, which makes me thinking, what about the rest of the world? Correct me if I'm wrong, but ESPN is US exclusive. ESPN Plus is region locked. I can't be a subscriber of the ESPN Plus anywhere in Europe, so now how to get even pay-per-views? And second, Conor retires just after the new ESPN deal. Do you think it had something got to do with it? I believe he can't get pay-per-view points now how he did before. Probably they are offering less money than before. I think he retired because it's not worth it. Anyhow, keep up the good work. Bye.
All right, so first of all, the ESPN, the pay-per-views, everything international will remain the same. The whole thing that you can only get pay-per-views through ESPN Plus is here in the U.S. Yep. So if you're an international fan, you don't have to worry about that. This is only for the U.S. folks.
That's correct.
So with that out of the way, let's talk about that. So Conor McGregor retired, right? And, we know that he was big on pay-per-view points because, he is a big draw. That's how he makes a good chunk of his money. Do you think that's the reason why he retired?
I think, he's trying to exert maximum leverage right when they go to pay-per-view with ESPN Plus is probably got something to do with it, right? Because if you want to fold that over too, Joe, that'd be great. Look, man, I know for a fact that ESPN wants to feature Conor on one of their platforms at this point, probably their linear TV, but they'll take pay-per-view at this point as well. And him sitting out doesn't help that effort at all. How effective that will be in getting them to make any kind of change remains to be seen. I suspect not very powerful, at least not right now. But it probably could be related. Sure, it's a theory. I don't have any proof. So
yeah,
or hypothesis.
By the way, quick parentheses: your Molly to your Percocet. You know that song?
No,
Percocet. Molly Percocet.
I am not a fan of Lil Xan or Gucci Gang. Lil Pump.
Yeah. Well, we have a question about rap. So, a rapper that you might know of later on the show. So, anyways, but yeah. So for people wondering, it's not that fighters won't get pay-per-view points moving forward because I am assuming they will, and most likely they will.
Yes.
The thing is, the pay-per-view buys are likely gonna drop because now they're behind a paywall, right? For example, I'll put you this perfect example. My dad never orders a pay-per-view. Never. I think he's ordered maybe 2 in his life or 1, and the most recent one was UFC 229 because he saw the commercials about Khabib, he saw the commercials about McGregor, he knew that was a big fight, and he's like, F it, let me watch it. He's not doing anything on Saturday night, so he ordered that pay-per-view, and he ordered it through his cable provider. Guarantee you, he's not going to go on the computer and buy the pay-per-view, sign up to ESPN Plus, and then buy the pay-per-view if it came about it. It was just something that was there. It was easy for him to do, and he bought it. So technically, the pay-per-views will drop most likely. So, I'm guessing fighters like Conor McGregor would demand a higher percentage since, to make up for that kind of loss. So, I'm with you. I think this whole retirement thing is him exercising leverage. I don't know how serious he's going to take it. I think he's willing to sit out for a bit. But I think eventually he will come back. I don't think this is a do or die for him. Do you agree?
I agree.
All right. Well, with that out of the way, let's actually talk about some of the fights and some of the action that went down this weekend. So let's start off with one. Demetrious Johsnon picked up a pretty solid win over at one. So let's discuss that.
Hey, Luke and Danny. This is Brian Siskind from Nashville, the unfortunate destination for all bachelorette parties. So I was curious to see how Demetrious Johsnon would adapt to the differing rules in one, specifically with respect to knees to downed opponents. DJ went beyond just being aware of that new threat and actually took advantage of knees while his opponent was down, which really began his fight-ending sequence. Is DJ an anomaly being able to adapt so well? Do you think this will be an issue for other fighters coming to one from the UFC? Just seems like it'd be really tough to retrain your instincts to account for that threat. Would love to hear your thoughts on it. Thanks.
Yeah, it's sort of two parts here. One is that, yes, DJ is going to be able to adapt to any kind of different rule set better than just about any other fighter. On the other hand, what I would also say is, not to diminish his contribution because it is as real as the caller identified it being, it actually is the fighter's instinct to knee in that situation. It's in the unified rules that they have to suppress that instinct. On the one show, they no longer have to. So it's actually a reverse repression where they have to repress the initial previous desire to repress throwing the knee, if that makes sense. They're so used to, like, I want to throw it, but I can't.
Yeah.
Now you have to work around that. But yes, DJ is going to acclimate to any kind of rule set change better than most fighters.
And a perfect example is, the other former UFC fighter, former UFC champion who fought on that card, Eddie Alvarez. Remember when he fought Dustin Poirier the first time? He landed an illegal knee. He's like, I'm not a dirty fighter. I'm not a dirty fighter. It was just an instinct. He's in that position. He's trying to finish the fight, right? Your whole goal is to beat up your opponent. And he threw a knee. And then, we know what happened with that first outing. So, yeah, it's definitely a lot more freeing, I feel like, the one rules. But I would say I feel like Demetrious Johsnon is somebody that will adapt very well, given, what I've seen in other fights. One, his size, I feel like fighters that are smaller tend to, use perhaps, more knees and more of those type of strikes than, say, like a bigger fighter. And two, like, do you remember when he fought John Dodson? And John Dodson was playing the whole, putting his hand on the ground to make him a grounded opponent, and DJ kept bumping him up just to knee him. So I think DJ will adapt quite well. And there's definitely some fighters that we've seen in history that, adapt to those rules than others. I mean, Shogun became famous for his stomps, Vanderlei for his soccer kicks. You can go down the list. So, it's gonna be fun watching Demetrious Johsnon in this new rule.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems I have with the one organization, but their rule set is not one of them. I actually like their rule set. I think it's smart, and I think Matt Hume has probably had a lot to say about crafting a rule set, not for Demetrious, but just generally in his role as VP. And I think he's done a great job.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely exciting. All right, now let's talk about Khabib. And you kind of touched on this on your Monday morning analyst.
I had to race through it.
Yeah, but so let's discuss it further.
Luke, Danny, and the crew. It's JD from a tiny town in the middle of nowhere in Canada. Just curious, I know I dropped a part of this message a little while ago, but Khabib really does have yet to face a top high-level grappler. And we know he beat Max Holloway is going to be top-tier striking versus top-tier grappling. However, is Justin Gaethje actually the more dangerous fight to Khabib? I've watched that guy wrestle through World Series of Fighting. I've seen the old videos. Man is a beast, and he can bang. Is it possible he's the threat no one really saw coming for that belt? Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Yes, he is. I can't declare that as true, as fact, as I know for sure, but I showed the two takedowns. They only happened one case where he got absolutely floored, and another case where he had been hurt over the course of 2.5 rounds from Eddie freaking Alvarez. And he got right back up under both of those considerations. Khabib's not the kind of guy who really puts hands on you like that, not nearly to the same extent. Of course, he's a much better wrestler than those two guys as well. So the answer is I don't know, but I think there's a lot of reasons to think, Danny Segura, that it's a very compelling matchup.
I would have to agree. And look, there's something about his, I don't know, his physique, his structure that you see him and he just seems so wiry. Like you never really see him resting. He's always just kind of ready to, always recharged, ready to, exert power. And I feel like, it's very difficult to deal with someone like that if you're trying to take them down. Two, fighting Khabib, you want somebody, right? If you're trying to win, of course, you want somebody that's ready to go from the very beginning. When you're on your feet, you got to maximize your time, right? Because you know that once he gets you to the ground, it's going to be a tough fight. You know, this type of fighter where you pick your shots and take your time and set them up, I don't know if that's the right striker to make the most out of, striking with Khabib. I think someone that's, always, foot on the pedal 100% of the time, I think that's the way to go. And Gaethje is that. I still have questions about his wrestling because, as you mentioned, there are some things that like we can see, and we can see he's got great takedown defense, but I feel like it's still very little. But man, I really do think if Gaethje puts up a couple wins, and especially now, I saw a much more measured Justin Gaethje in that fight. I think he could be a real threat. I think he could be the threat to Khabib.
The thing about the guy who's super aggressive going after Khabib, it's not that I don't know what the right answer is. You
can get overexposed for takedowns.
Exactly. Yeah. I sort of worry about that Khabib is actually like surprisingly quick. Yeah. And I wonder if him getting underneath something and someone's overcommitting to something would just make the job of Khabib a little bit easier versus someone like Conor who's a little bit more concerted in that way. And of course, Conor I don't think can wrestle like Justin Gaethje can, but you get the idea. There's a lot of different ways that could go. Here's the point. A lot of times I can sort of piece together how a fight might go.
Yeah.
I don't know about this one. I really don't know. It's much more interesting than I think folks can. When Justin said it the first time, I was like, let me think about that. And then I really began to think about it. And I saw those 2 takedowns in preparation for today's show, and I was like, oh, this is much more of an interesting question than I think anyone realizes, except Justin Gaethje.
Yeah. Well, I think he knows. He's like, for when he came into the UFC, I feel like he just came with this mentality, like, look, I'm in the UFC, I made it, I'm just here to entertain. Now he's like, I'm gonna make my way to Khabib, and he's willing to fight anybody to get there. But I don't know. Did you see like a much more measured, a much more patient Justin Gaethje in this fight? Like, I feel like
this was a much better performance than he had against, let's say, Michael Johnson.
For sure.
The only thing I was pointing out when I was pushing back against people being like, well, he fought smart this time. Yeah, he did. And again, the Michael Johnson one, he was a little bit wild.
Yeah.
But he's been doing a lot of things that were clearly thoughtful that he never got credit for because the barbarism he fights for just drowns out everything else. And it kind of upsets me. It's like, I get the point. No one loves his barbarism more than me. But to say that this was the first time he ever really showed a lot of intelligence, no. He shows intelligence in high-level fighting. He just marries it with some craziness. And I think that's the reality.
Yeah, he's definitely. I agree with that, but I'll push back a little bit in the sense of I feel like he's always, to do what he does, you got to be an intelligent fighter. I mean, he's obviously, implementing like great technique out there, but I feel like in this fight he wasn't. I mean, you always got to compromise, right? If you want to be an exciting fighter, but I feel like he dialed down a little bit. It kind of reminded me that one time when Vanderlei Silva fought Kung Lee, where like, yes, he had that crazy barrage of punches that he always throws, but like it was smart aggressiveness.
I'll say yes to that. Again, I think we're mostly agreeing. I'll push back on the pushback just a hair on that, Danny, and I'll say this. I don't think in the end I wasn't sure how Edson and Justin would match. In the end, I think Justin was a very bad matchup for him. Because if you go back and you watch the Alvarez fight and then you watch the Poirier fight, watch how much they're turning him. Watch how much they take away pieces of the game that he needs to succeed. Edson didn't really do that. Edson just kind of stood his ground. That's not what Eddie did, and it's not what Dustin did. And I think that kind of plays into it too.
Yeah. Well, I feel like he got rocked early. It was a very quick fight.
Bro, Eddie got rocked early too.
I mean, Eddie always gets rocked early, but yeah. I want to see more of Justin Gaethje. I want to see like how he looks.
It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
It's not
really
settled by any stretch of the imagination.
Isn't the lightweight division fun, man?
Dude, it's the best division
awesome.
in MMA.
Yeah,
I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right, well, I'm going to get Javier Mendez. You want me to leave you with a question?
Leave me with one, then go grab Hav, please.
All right, cool. Let me see. Here it is. All right. This is all you, homie.
All right.
Hey, what's up, Luke? What's up, Danny? This is Lex, man. I'm calling out of Louisville, Kentucky. I actually just had somewhat of an off-topic question for Luke. Luke, what's your favorite song out of these last 3 Pusha T albums? What's your favorite song from Daytona? What's your favorite song from My Name Is My Name? And what's your favorite song from Wrath of King? I'm just interested. I'd love to know that. Thanks.
God, that's a good one. So from Daytona, I would say God, it's a good one. If you know, you know. I would say my favorite Pusha T song ever, aside from the story of Adidon, is God, what's my favorite? Numbers on the boards. Yeah, that's probably about. God, there's a bunch of good ones to pick from. Numbers on the boards is probably my favorite song, and one of my favorite videos as well. And then, but God, I don't know if you mentioned the album or not, but Alone in Vegas is another good one. Yeah, those are some easy top. I mean, there's so many good ones. And also, like, I'm a big fan of Clips. Clips kind of fell off because what's his face? Malice, was he No Malice now? There was two brothers, and Pusha T kept going, and Malice, saw God or whatever, and decided to call it quits. But I'm a big Pusha T fan, or a big Clips fan. So, by the way, shouts to Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Norfolk, that whole area. That's where all those guys came from. Neptunes, the whole bit. So,
yeah, let's talk about a key welterweight matchup that got recently announced.
Luke, Danny, how the hell are you? This is Jay calling out of Brandon, Mississippi. Listen, I wanted to talk about the Woodley versus Lawler match. Lawler's 1-3 in his last 4. I don't think it makes sense for him to fight the number 1 guy, other than Usman, of course. What are your thoughts? I thought that, if anything, Lawler should fight Pettis and Woodley should fight Ponzinibbio. Give me your thoughts. Thanks for taking my call.
Rematch. What do you think about it?
We talked about this a bit on the MMA beat. I'm not nearly as upset about it.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was the best fight to make. I guess I would have preferred to see something fresh. But yeah, I don't really. I mean, again, we talked about this last week on this show. I'm not one of these guys who gets super upset about matchups. Again, here or there, I'll get upset if it really makes no sense. But I'm not one of these guys who gets super excited about them or super depressed about them. I kind of just stay even through all of them, and I don't think this is the best choice, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, same. I didn't really have any strong feelings towards it. I'm like, it's going to be a good fight. I'm actually somewhat excited to see it because, we know that Robbie Lawler has one hell of a chin, right? And the first bout, because the fight was so quick, we kind of got robbed on how it would look if it would stretch over a long period of time, which I think could be a very fun fight.
Yeah, look, it's people act like it's a bad fight. Yeah. It's not a bad fight. It's a good fight. Maybe it's not the best one to make, but it's all right.
And correct me if I'm wrong. This is hard to put into words. I don't really know how to describe it, but both Tyron Woodley and Robbie Lawler, for some reason, carry. I don't know if it's because they were, former champions, but they carry a certain aura that other contenders don't carry in the welterweight division.
Agreed.
So this matchup actually feels like, it could definitely. This shouldn't. It feels like it only belongs in a pay-per-view card. You know what I'm saying? Like it feels like.
Well, they're putting it on a fight night.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It feels like it should belong.
I see. You see that they've misplaced it.
Right.
Yeah, maybe.
Don't you think? I don't know. It has like a.
Well, we'll see. There could also be a question of
it feels like a big fight.
It does feel like a big fight. There's a question of maybe one of these guys might be too old. We'll see. Maybe not. No one really knows, and this fight will tell us the answer to that.
Yeah, I suppose. But I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Why is my hoodie falling down my back? There we go. Go ahead.
All right, now let's talk about something you just touched on with the Justin Gaethje interview.
Hey, Luke, big fan of the show. This is Gabe from PA. I was just hoping I could get your thoughts on that post-show interview with Paul Felder and Justin Gaethje. It seemed like, now, if they make that fight, sign me the fuck up. I think Paul Felder is one of the few guys that can match Justin Gaethje in just terms of pure savage durability and toughness, But Paul Felder was there working as an analyst, and you could tell Justin Gaethje didn't really appreciate the call-out. He even said in the post-fight interview, that he felt like him and Karen Bryant were trying to steal his thunder.
I get what he's about to ask. I have a couple comments on it.
Yeah,
we'll appreciate the call. I was just trying to move through as fast as possible.
Yep.
Here's what I would basically say. Look, this is not to Justin, but to the UFC is who I would say this to. You kind of reap what you sow, man. If you want to have active fighters who are calling fights or serving as analysts, here's the good news. They're plugged in ways a lot of other athletes or a lot of other commentators might not necessarily be. Here's the bad news. They're going to call fights against their rivals. They're going to call fights against their rivals' friends or teammates or people they hate. They're going to interview people who are in their division, and they're going to do what Paul Felder did. I don't think what Paul Felder did was the best thing, but I can't really say I blame him because no one told him he couldn't. In fact, they probably told him, if you're going to, now's the time, start it here. This is the reality of having active fighters in those roles. If you want that to happen, here's the lesson. That is inevitable. It is absolutely inevitable.
Yeah.
Deal, not to Justin, but to the UFC. This, you're going to reap what you sow on this one.
Yeah, man. And to further your point, like, we live in an era where rankings, and in that interview, Justin Gaethje was saying, rankings don't mean anything. You know what I'm saying? We live in an era where talking, getting your name out there, causing controversy, calling somebody out is worth a lot, right?
Yep.
So, of course, and fighters are out to, look out for their best interest. So I can't blame Paul Felder for that. But that's what he's going to do because, hey, if that's the fight he wants, he's got a camera in front of him. Everybody's watching. You know what I'm saying?
It's the hype business. What better way to get some hype than got the guy who's just coming off the KO win?
Yeah, exactly. So, I can't really blame any of the guys there, but the UFC for setting this up. I mean, I think it's not bad if you have, fighters, active fighters, calling these fights, fine, have it. But when it comes down to interview, the post guy, post fight, it's their time to shine. You know what I'm saying? So maybe just have, say, Karen Bryan or one of the interviewers that, is not an active fighter, conduct the interview and have, the active fighter sit out, especially if they're in the same weight division. I felt kind of the same way, and I think this guy handled it like a complete professional, but still, there was a little bit of a weird feeling there.
I understand Paul's feeling. I understand Justin's feeling. They're going to clash. They're going to clash. You keep that around, they're going to clash. This is why you should have Jimmy Smith.
Same thing when, exactly, there you go.
You wouldn't have to worry about any of this.
When DC called Justin Willis' fight against Curtis Blades in the post-fight interview, DC handled himself like a complete pro, but nonetheless, I felt like there was a little bit of tension there. I don't know, I
don't look, I think that Paul is a great commentator, but maybe on the analyst desk have Jimmy Smith.
Exactly.
But they decided they didn't want to have him because he's not a former UFC fighter, which is a very stupid idea, but here we are.
All right, on to the next question. This one comes up often, but I feel like it's fun to revisit, especially as new tracks come out. So let's hear it.
Hey, Luke and Danny. This is Aaron calling from Sydney, Australia. Simple question. What would your walkout song be if you were a UFC fighter? For me, I would choose Face the Pain, just so I could be the biggest heel and make everybody hate me. All right, thanks, fellas. Love to know your thoughts, and thanks for all the great content. Keep it up. Bye.
I feel like low-key you'd do the same. True or not?
I hope all of you die.
You wouldn't do the same? I feel like you would do it because I feel like you're so passionate about this topic that it'll just pump you up. Like you'd be ready.
I'm not passionate about walkout songs. I'm passionate about not slumming it with dumb shit music that's old and that nobody likes. I've said this before. It's like, of all the things you want to debate, like, what should be this color and what's the best way to run this production element and blah blah blah. This seems to be like the no-brainer of it. It's like maybe at the concession. This is how I hear it every time someone says it. Like, I like Face the Pain. This is like saying, all right, at the concession stands, we're going to serve beer, pretzels, hot dogs, and feces sandwiches. And I'm raising my hand, being like, maybe don't serve feces sandwiches at the concession stands. Be like, no, dude, people love them. I'm like, I don't really think that that's true. I don't think people love them, and they've kind of phased it out. To be quite honest with you, I've sort of, I think I've harangued the folks in the know a little bit.
They bring in bodies, every now and then.
And it's like I just can't believe this is an issue. It is a terrible song. It is outdated. It dates the product. It was never good to begin with. It's certainly not aged well. And they keep recycling it like it's some like this is, When the Levee Breaks by effing Led Zeppelin or something. Like it's some iconic track. It is basura, garbage.
Yep. All right, but anyways, what will your walkout song be?
It would be Big Mouth Strikes Again by the Smiths.
Okay. I think I'll go with Chambea, Bad Bunny.
Of course you would. Why wouldn't you?
Chambea.
Of course you would. That's a fine song. That'd be a good one. With the gun going off and everything.
Yeah. Carón no te quedan balas. All right, let's talk about Eddie Alvarez.
This is Justin from Las Vegas. Huge fan of the show, guys. Just moved out here from Mobile, Alabama, and loving it so far, 1 month in. My question is, if you guys caught the One Championship card at all, I only watched the DJ and Eddie Alvarez fights. but it looked like Eddie was moving much slower, and he wasn't his normal self. He didn't want to engage as much as he usually does. Can you touch upon this?
Yeah, that was not a great performance from Eddie. And I don't think that's controversial to say. Now, here's the thing that I won't do. It's one fight.
Mhm.
I'm very hesitant to read too much into it, Danny Segura. I'm very hesitant to read into it. Oh, he's done. Show's over. He can't hang anymore. I will acknowledge that it was a bad performance. I will acknowledge that it did look like something was off. But I've seen this before where I'm like, oh, here we go. It's the beginning of the end. And then they come right back out and they look fine the next time out. Could be a lot of factors. Could be they didn't take the guy seriously. Could be they maybe had an injury. Could be maybe he is done and we don't know it yet. Could be the travel. Hard to really say exactly. He also has had, dude, Eddie's taken a ton of damage in his career. So what does it mean? It means this. It wasn't good. Let's see how he looks in the next one before we draw any firmer conclusions.
I'm with you 100%. And to best, put this into words, Kamaru Usman, I think it was Kamaru Usman. He had a great tweet. He said Eddie Alvarez is the type of guy to go to a promotion, lose, then go tear the division and win the title. So that's what he did in the UFC.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make much of this loss.
Although his debut against Cowboy was more competitive.
Of course, yeah. That's true. But it's safe to say, I mean, there was a much younger Eddie Alvarez.
Yep.
But, I mean, he was rocked, in that fight. So, I don't know. I'm not gonna say Eddie Alvarez is done. I think, we need to see a few fights and then see how he looks.
Jose, you cannot rule it out either.
Yes, of
but
course.
you don't want to jump to conclusions. By the way, here's who he fought in the UFC, just so everybody knows. This was his UFC resume. Donald Cerrone, Gilbert Melendez, Anthony Pettis, Rafael dos Anjos, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier again. Dog, you want to talk about fighting murderers? Yeah. That is who he fought, murderers. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe he is a little bit, worn down. It's possible, but I don't want to declare it until we have some more evidence.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we got to wait and see what happens. Plus, every time you jump into a new promotion, new weight cutting, right, travel, everything, there's so many factors involved that it's way too early to speculate. We got to see some more.
This is his first back-to-back loss scenario in his career, though.
Huh.
It's the first time that's happened. That's never a good sign. Yeah.
I mean, we just got to keep an eye on it and see what happens.
That's exactly right. He could come back and blow the doors off somebody next time. So let's just see.
All right, we got time for one more.
Let's do one more.
All right. What do you wanna talk about? What strikes you think should be illegal, or maybe a little bit of Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier?
Let's talk Max. I'm pumped. By the way, Jose, let me say this.
Yeah.
I've got a special Monday morning analyst next week.
Nice.
I have one because there's no UFC event this next weekend, right?
No.
Buddy boy, I have
get some good sleep.
I am the foremost Max Holloway whisperer. I feel like that's true. It's probably not true, but I feel like it's true.
He loves your Monday morning analyst.
Dog, his coaches love it too.
He called the audience. He's like, yo, don't give away my tricks.
Jose,
yeah.
I found something in the tape, and I was like, next week, boy. Next week. You will see.
I'm excited.
All right, let's hear it.
All right, so let's discuss that. This one's a little long,
Luke,
so I'll cut it
this
short.
Is Killian calling from Los Angeles, California, by way of Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta.
A couple questions for you. With UFC 236 vastly or quickly approaching, I was wondering if you thought between the two, Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier, who has improved the most? Obviously, Max is on a 12-fight win streak. He's looking unstoppable these days.
I'm gonna cut it right there.
Sleeping on.
Yeah.
Who do you think has improved the most?
The answer,
Holloway or Poirier?
Yeah. Which, by the way, who has improved the most is not the same question as who is better. They are two. The answer could be the same, but they are not necessarily the same. Mm-hmm. Max has clearly improved the most. He was further behind. He has made up more distance. I just don't see how you can argue with that. His sophistication and his development has been extraordinary. At the same time, that doesn't mean Dustin Poirier also hasn't improved. He has. You just heard Justin Gaethje talk about it. I talked about the Monday Morning Analyst. All the angles he was taking, he was either getting out of the way of Gaethje or forcing him to turn all the time. Go back and watch. It was actually really, really slick how he was doing that. That was one of the reasons why he won, and he held the leg kicks down and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, point being is he has improved massively as well, and also went up a weight class, so he feels better as well, too. So there's that. Now, Max is coming up, so we'll see what that means. But Max has improved more is the answer.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy answer. I mean, just look at where they were at in their careers, and I'm not saying Poirier hasn't improved. He's improved drastically as well, but Poirier was already a legit contender at featherweight.
Yep.
I think from that fight, if I'm not mistaken, he went on to fight maybe one more and then the Korean Zombie for title eliminator.
Yep.
Whereas, Max Holloway was literally just getting started. That was his first UFC fight,
Yep. And they had to go fight the Will Chopes and everybody else of the world. So he had a much further distance to climb.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Poirier was already established at that point.
Poirier was that's why Poirier kind of ran through him the first time. Like the first fight was not close.
Yeah.
But in the 7 years since then, it's been Max making up more ground.